They laughed when the boy cried. The teacher turned away, and the principal signed the punishment, without knowing the truth that would destroy their careers. If stories like this touch your heart, please subscribe, because every day we share real stories that restore faith in humanity. Ethan Parker was 9 years old when he learned that silence could hurt more than words. Every morning, he stood at the bus stop with his backpack held tight against his chest, as if it were the only thing in the world that wouldn't abandon him. His shoes were always a size too big, his clothes never matched, and his eyes always looked tired, like someone who had already lived too much life for a child. The kids at Lincoln Ridge Elementary noticed everything. They noticed how Ethan never brought lunch money, how his notebooks were second-hand, how he flinched when someone raised their voice. What they didn't notice was why. Inside the classroom, Ethan sat in the back row. Not because he wanted to, but because that's where Mrs. Caldwell told him to sit. "Maybe you'll cause less trouble back there," she said one morning, loud enough for everyone to hear. The class laughed. Ethan lowered his head. Mrs. Caldwell had taught for 20 years. She believed she could spot problem kids easily. Ethan, quiet and withdrawn, had already been labeled in her mind. Lazy, unmotivated, disruptive in his own strange way. When homework went missing, it was Ethan. When supplies were forgotten, it was Ethan. When someone whispered during a lesson, somehow it was Ethan. He never defended himself, because at home Ethan had learned that defending yourself didn't change anything. His mother, Sarah Parker, worked 2 jobs, one during the day cleaning offices, another at night stocking shelves. His father had died 3 years earlier in a factory accident, leaving behind debt, grief, and a silence that never left their small apartment. Sarah tried her best, but best doesn't always look like enough. Every night Ethan waited up for her, pretending to do homework even when his eyes burned with exhaustion. Sometimes he fell asleep at the table, sometimes she cried when she thought he wasn't looking, and sometimes he heard things no child should hear, like eviction warnings, like collection calls, like quiet prayers whispered into the dark. The bullying begins. At school, the bullying started small. A pencil knocked off his desk, a chair pulled away just as he sat, whispers that followed him down the hallway. "Poor kid, freak, why does he always look scared?" The ringleader was Mark Reynolds, the son of a wealthy real estate developer. Mark wore brand-name shoes and confidence like armor. One afternoon during lunch, Mark flicked Ethan's sandwich onto the floor. "Oops," he said, smirking. "Guess you'll have to starve." The cafeteria laughed. Ethan didn't cry. He just stared at the floor. A lunch monitor saw it happen. She looked at Ethan. "Well," she said impatiently. "Clean it up that day Ethan didn't eat, wrongly accused. Things escalated when money went missing from Mrs. Caldwell's desk. $20. She didn't hesitate. "Ethan," she said sharply, pointing. "Stay after class." The room buzzed with whispers. When everyone left, Mrs. Caldwell crossed her arms. "You're always forgetting things, always struggling," she said. "And now this?" "I didn't take it," Ethan whispered. She sighed. "I don't have time for excuses." The principal was called. A report was written, and for the first time in his life, Ethan was officially labeled a thief. Sarah was summoned to the school. She stood in the principal's office, exhausted, humiliated, apologizing for something her son hadn't done. "We'll suspend him for 3 days, the principal said. "And if this behavior continues," he didn't finish the sentence. Sarah nodded anyway. That night, Ethan cried silently into his pillow, not because he was suspended, but because his mother believed them, the invisible supporter. There was only one person at school who ever spoke kindly to Ethan, Mr. Henry, the janitor. He noticed Ethan stayed late every day, sitting alone on the steps. One evening he handed Ethan a granola bar. "Rough day, kid?" he asked. Ethan nodded. Mr. Henry didn't ask questions. He never forced conversation. He just sat nearby, and sometimes that was enough, the breaking point. The final incident happened during a school assembly. Mark tripped Ethan as he walked onto the stage. Ethan fell. The microphone screeched. The auditorium erupted in laughter. Mrs. Caldwell shook her head. "Get up," she hissed. "Stop embarrassing yourself." Something inside Ethan broke. He ran, out of the auditorium, out of the building, into the rain. He wasn't found for hours. When they did find him, he was sitting under the bleachers, soaked, shaking, silent. This time, the school couldn't ignore it. A formal investigation began. The twist 70% mark, what no one expected was who would walk into the school board hearing. A woman in a dark suit, calm, controlled. Her name was Judge Rebecca Parker, Ethan's aunt, Sarah's older sister, a federal child welfare judge. The room went silent as she placed a folder on the table. Inside were medical reports, counseling notes, security footage, and a documented pattern of negligence. She looked directly at Mrs. Caldwell. "You labeled my nephew without evidence," she said. Then at the principal. You ignored repeated warning signs. Then at Mark's parents. And you taught your son that wealth protects cruelty. The stolen money? Found in Mark's backpack, caught on camera. The bullying? Documented. Ignored. Enabled. Justice served. Mrs. Caldwell was suspended pending termination. The principal was removed. Mark was expelled and required to attend behavioral counseling. The school issued a public apology. But the most powerful moment came when Judge Parker knelt in front of Ethan. "You were never weak," she said softly. "You were surviving." For the first time, Ethan cried in front of everyone, and no one laughed. Emotional relief. Before this story ends, I just want to say thank you to everyone who subscribed. This channel exists because of you. Months later, Ethan returned to school. Different classroom. Different teacher. Same quiet boy. But now, he smiled. Mr. Henry waved from the hallway. Ethan waved back. Because sometimes, justice doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes, it arrives late, but when it does, it changes everything.